So we have multiple topics on jQuery. So for learning syntax of jQuery, we have jQuery Basics 1 and 2. So let's start with the Basics 1. These are the set of topics we are going to cover in this presentation. So we are going to learn what is and why jQuery, and we are going to use this notation $ and the parenthesis, and jQuery parenthesis returns jQuery object, and we are going to see various forms of the usage of $ parenthesis, and we are going to see how we can select HTML elements. So in our previous presentation of DOM API, we had get element by name, get element by ID, and get elements by name. Those are two primary APIs in DOM that let you select element or elements, right? But those are very low level. It's not flexible. It's not powerful, and so jQuery provides much better HTML element selection scheme. So that's something we are going to learn. It also provides element manipulation, the APIs, for example, changing the content of an element, things like that. CSS manipulation is also being supported, pretty extensive CSS support. And event functions, again, we have on-click event, on mouse over event, and things like that. As I said, those are pretty low-level APIs. So the jQuery provides high level for supporting the events. Effects and animations are also important feature of jQuery, and the data, you can associate some data into an element. So that's something we are going to see, and we are also learning how to manipulate a collection. So a bunch of topics. Okay. So what is and why jQuery? So jQuery is the most popular JavaScript library. Okay. As you're going to see in a few minutes, jQuery is way more popular than any other JavaScript library out there. Okay. It is lightweight, and it's easy and fast and flexible. It provides easy and fast and flexible HTML DOM selection. So you're going to see examples of this. Is very simple compared to DOM level API we talked about. Okay. It's being supported in all modern browsers, and it is open source. So as I said, jQuery is easy to use. And it hides browser incompatibility, so that is in fact the one big reason why you want to use JavaScript library such as jQuery, because it hides all the incompatibilities for you. And it's very extensible through plugins. jQuery has tens of thousands of plugins you can use. Okay, because creating jQuery plugin is very simple. It's quite extensive. Existing plugin could be extensible, and you can actually create plugins very easily. And it's well documented, and developer community is huge, and it works with the other library as well. The fact that you are using jQuery library does not prevent you from using other library. Okay, so you can actually combine jQuery with other libraries, but that's highly unlikely because jQuery itself is providing pretty much everything that you need. Okay, so let's talk about easy to use features of jQuery. In fact, this is the biggest reason why jQuery is so popular. It's so easy to use. Okay. It works with the elements directly. So let's explain what that means. Okay. So if you are writing non-jQuery code, so for example, if you are using pure JavaScript code, and if you want to hide div elements, okay, this is the code that you have to write. So you are going to call get element by tag name, and then you actually provide the div. So you want to collect, you want to actually select all div elements. Whose tag name is div, basically all div elements. Okay, and then if you want to hide those elements, basically you are going to have a for loop, and then you are going to set the display property of the style object of that element to none. Okay, so this is very cumbersome. By using jQuery code is very natural. You basically, as you're going to see over and over, jQuery code is very simple. You find HTML elements. Okay, this is the blue colored code. Basically, you are going to use the $, and you provide name of the element. In fact, there are many different ways of selecting elements. So this is one way. It's basically I like to get all div elements, and then you are going to call hide method. So this is it. So this is the same thing as this. This is simpler, and this is easy to write, and this is faster. Okay, so basically in jQuery, you perform the search of DOM element or HTML element, and then you do something with those by just calling a method. So when you call $ something, it returns jQuery object. So jQuery object has a bunch of methods you can use, and one of those methods is in fact hide. Okay, any questions on this slide? Question from Pooja. When we say lightweight, what does that exactly mean? When we say lightweight, we are talking about it. It is pretty small library that does very powerful things. That's what I mean by lightweight. Okay, I mean, if you actually perform if you provide certain feature, you could have a library that actually pretty heavyweight, meaning it has a lot of lines of code. Okay, on the other hand, jQuery is pretty, the small library, so it's pretty powerful compared to its size. That's what I mean by lightweight. Okay. Question from Shashawata. Hopefully I pronounce your name correctly. Is execution-wise jQuery add any overhead? Well, jQuery library is very much optimized, right? So, if you want to actually perform like a hide operation, you might in fact have to write. The code that you have to write is probably a lot less optimized than the one that gets provided by jQuery library. Okay, even the third-party plugins, you can actually see the popularity of it, basically based on ease of use standpoint, also performance standpoint, and things like that. Okay, so in general, jQuery based the library and plugins are very much optimized. Okay, any other questions? Okay, question from Srini. There are so many JavaScript libraries, jQuery, Node.js, Angular, and among other popular ones. Where does jQuery stands out compared to other JavaScript libraries? Okay, so this is important question. So let me actually forward to everyone so that you actually read this one first before I answer this question. Okay, everyone reads that question? So there are so many JavaScript libraries, jQuery, Node.js, Angular, among other popular ones. Where does jQuery stand out compared to other JavaScript libraries? Okay, so first of all, this question is incorrect. Okay, so the jQuery is a JavaScript library. Okay, and there are other JavaScript libraries such as the Prototype and the Dojo and things like that. Okay, Node.js is actually server-side framework for building server-side application. I wouldn't call it a JavaScript library. So you can think of it as a server-side framework, such as a Spring framework. That Spring framework is for server-side Java framework, right? Node.js is a server-side framework like a Spring MVC, but it's written in JavaScript, and also it takes advantage of event-driven model. Okay, so it is more than JavaScript library. Okay, Angular is also more than JavaScript library. Angular is basically front-end framework. Okay, front-end MVC framework, and there are other examples such as a Backbone.js and the Amber.js and things like that. So these guys are in fact more than library. It is in fact a front-end MVC framework. Underneath it's actually using jQuery. Okay, so jQuery is actually, you can think of it as a low-level JavaScript library that is in fact being used by other framework such as Node.js and such as AngularJS. Okay, so you can think of Node.js and AngularJS. Those are frameworks that take advantage of low-level JavaScript libraries such as a jQuery internally. Does that answer your question? But this is actually a very important question for you guys to understand. Good. Any more questions on that? Okay, so let's move on. Good question. Okay, so another easy to use feature besides the first easy to feature is that basically the model of usage of jQuery is that you search for or find HTML elements and then you call method of jQuery object like a hide. Okay, the second easy to use feature is chaining. Okay, you can chain methods, including methods from third-party plugins. Okay, so I like to find all developments and I like to add my style class, and then I want to perform fade out method. I can actually keep chaining. Okay, so this is another easy to use feature in jQuery. So as you can see, jQuery is easy to use mainly because of these two features. Okay. Okay, it also handles the browser incompatibility. So this code might not work, in fact, with the old version of IDE. Okay, but for doing this code is I want to find out target. I want to get the element whose ID is target. Then I want to set inner HTML with these values or something like that. Okay, and in order to do that with jQuery, basically you are going to $, and then you provide selector. So in this case, I want to find an element whose the ID is target. Then I want to use the HTML method to set inner HTML. So this one works with all browsers and all versions of those browsers. Okay, and it hides browser incompatibility. Okay, in terms of jQuery and other JavaScript libraries. So other JavaScript library we are talking about is like UWI and prototype and things like that. So let's actually try this and see what is in fact the popularity among these different JavaScript libraries. So Dojo and jQuery, and this is from Yahoo UI and prototype and Mutus and things like that. So you can see this is the jQuery. Okay, and everything else is pretty much like a dying down, right? Okay, so jQuery is the one that is being pretty much so anyway, seems like it's actually coming down a bit. It's mainly because I think people are not using jQuery directly anymore. They typically use frameworks such as AngularJS or Node.js, which actually internally is using jQuery. So people are actually writing their code using higher level abstraction based on provided by framework. Okay. Question from Shurini. Using jQuery, it works where as plain JavaScript may not work with older browsers. Yeah, you can say that. Okay. All right, so let's actually move forward. So who's using jQuery? So everyone is using jQuery. Okay. Again, the trend is actually moving forward with the framework rather than jQuery level API. Okay, moving forward. So those are pretty much the background of jQuery. What is it and why people want to use it? Now we are going to actually learn actual APIs. Okay. So the notation of $, and selector, and jQuery selector returns jQuery object. So let's actually learn what these things are all about. Okay. So the $, something, and jQuery something, and this something is you're going to provide some selector returns jQuery object. Okay, So jQuery is a function. So if you actually inspect jQuery itself or $sign itself, you are going to see it's a function object. So because it's a function object, you can actually call it. Okay, so when you call jQuery with some selector, it returns jQuery object. Now the reason jQuery object is useful is because jQuery object has a lot of properties and built-in methods you can use. So example, the built-in method is something like like a hide, okay, and fade out. So these are all from the jQuery object. Okay, so you can take advantage of all methods and properties available in jQuery object. Okay. By the way, jQuery invocation and $sign, they are in fact the same thing. Okay. So in fact, $sign something, $sign invocation is the same thing as jQuery invocation. But in your jQuery code, example code, you are going to see mostly in $sign notation. It's mainly because it's simpler to use. But it is in fact the same thing. Okay. All right. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Now, jQuery object wraps DOM elements. Okay. So when you perform jQuery invocation providing, for example, CSS selector, what it returns is jQuery object, and this jQuery object internally has a list of all the elements, okay, that it found. Okay, so let me actually explain what I mean by this. So let's say $sign and h1. So this will return jQuery object. So what it means is that select all h1 elements, okay, and it will return jQuery object. Okay, so in this case, headings is now jQuery object containing all h1 elements. Okay, and you can actually get the length of it. Okay, because it's a JavaScript object itself, you should be able to use length, and it will return number of h1 elements. Okay, so this length is from a JavaScript property rather than from a jQuery object property. Okay, now you can actually get, you can call get method, and you provide the index, and it will actually return the first h1 element in the page. So this one is the DOM element. This headings is the jQuery object. So this is a DOM object, and this is the jQuery object. Okay. Same thing here. This is actually returning the first DOM element. So this is a DOM object. Okay. And so these are DOM object, and this is the jQuery object. Okay. Okay, so that is something I actually like to mention here. So jQuery object versus native DOM object. Okay, so what are the differences between the two? So it's very important to make distinction between a jQuery object versus native DOM elements, because they are two different JavaScript objects, meaning they too have a different methods and properties. Okay, so you cannot call jQuery method on DOM object, and vice versa. You cannot actually call DOM object method on jQuery object. Okay, so when you actually, I mean, that's a common mistake you're going to make, and whenever you make that mistake, you're going to actually some error message, something like this. Okay, so in order to call jQuery method, the object has to be jQuery object. Okay, so if you want to perform some kind of jQuery method like a hide method for the DOM element, then you have to convert that DOM element into jQuery object. Okay, in order to convert into the jQuery object, basically you're going to say $, and then inside the parenthesis you specify the selector for that element selection criteria. Okay, so as I said before, differentiation between jQuery object versus DOM object is very important. So the naming convention for jQuery object is that usage of $. So when a variable is actually pointing to jQuery object, so in this case we call $method, $method, and then we provide this selector. So basically I like to get DOM element whose ID is logo, and it returns jQuery object, right? Because it's jQuery object, the variable name is recommended to have a $, prefixed. So when you see the code, when a variable is notated with $, front, that actually indicates that this is the jQuery object. Okay. On the other hand, DOM object is going to be without $. So here we are going to get the first DOM element that is inside of that jQuery object, and it returns a DOM object, right? So in that case, we are going to just use a logo 1, which indicates this is the DOM object. So this is a convention. It doesn't have to be followed, okay? So if I follow this convention, here, this heading should be in fact of $, should be prefixed with a $. That's a better practice. Okay, and this one doesn't have to, because those are referencing DOM object. Question up to this point? Okay, moving forward. Okay, so we have seen examples of this $sign notation. So let's take a look at various forms of $sign notation. So as I said before, the $sign is the same thing as jQuery, and those are function object. Okay, so these are the different forms of $sign notation. Typically, you're going to actually have a selector with a context or without the context. It could be DOM element, it could be HTML fragment, it could be callback, it could be jQuery object, it could be in fact JavaScript object. Okay, so many different ways of usage of $, but mostly you are going to use this guy, the first one. Okay, so let's take a look at the first notation, selector and context. So selector is a string containing selector expression, basically what you want to select. Okay, and context is the DOM element. It could be document object, it could be jQuery object, to be used as a context. I'm gonna give you an example of this one in a few minutes. So basically, when you call this $sign with a selector, it searches through the DOM tree for any element that matches the provided selector, and then it creates a new jQuery object that references those elements. So that newly created jQuery object, internally it maintains those elements. It wraps those elements. Okay, if no element is found, meaning no element matches the provided selector, then new jQuery object is empty, meaning it doesn't contain any elements, and the length property is 0. I mean, it's still a genuine valid jQuery object. It just happened to have no DOM elements internally. Okay, so this is an example. So in this case, when you're using this selector notation, div.foo, what that means is that get all div element, okay, and who has a foo class, style, CSS style class. Okay, so give me all div element who has foo as a styling, style value, class value. Okay, and get all those elements, and then I want to toggle class. So toggle class is, if it is highlighted, it is on, it will be off. If it is off, it will be on. So that is toggle highlight class. Okay, so again, this is an example where we provide a selector. Selector is basically criteria for selecting DOM elements. Okay, we are going to see more examples of this one in the following slide. Okay, the context. So by default, if you don't provide a context, then it will search the whole DOM tree. So in that case, the context in that case is probably document object. Okay, so by default, when context is not specified, selectors perform their searches within the DOM starting with the document root. Okay, however, you can actually provide a context, and then search will be from that particular object. Okay, So this is an example. So what we want to do is that we want to search all div element whose CSS style value is set to full, okay, and then we want to associate event handler click function, okay, and then once it is clicked, okay, then we want to find all span element, but not from the in all DOM tree, but from this object. By the way, this object is representing the object that was selected here. So when the search for this span selector is restricted to the context of this, only spans within the clicked element. Okay, so this is representing the clicked element. So in this case, only that clicked element will be changed with this class of bar. Okay, so this context basically provides starting point for search. Question? Any questions up to this point? Okay, so now you can also have a DOM element as the argument. So basically it creates a DOM object wrapping one or more DOM elements. As I said before, DOM element or DOM object is different from jQuery object, right? So if you want to perform jQuery operations, meaning if you want to invoke jQuery method, you have to convert the DOM object into jQuery object, and this is how you do it. Okay, so the common use of this facility is to call jQuery method on an element that has been passed to a callback function through the keyword of this. This element has to be converted into jQuery object via this before jQuery method can be invoked. Okay, so in this case, basically what we want to do is that when this div element is clicked, okay, now when you call this, so that is an example of this in this case. So this is representing DOM object. Okay, now if you want to perform jQuery operation for that particular DOM object, okay, it's like a slide up. So that is a method available from jQuery object, right? You cannot use that method for DOM object. Okay, so in order to use that jQuery method, you have to convert that DOM object represented by this to jQuery object by calling with a $. Does this make sense? Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions. Okay, you can also pass HTML fragment. So you can create jQuery object from the HTML fragment. Okay, so typically you are going to actually use this notation of you're going to actually search for ID, any element, any p element whose ID is test or something like that. Okay, so typically you want to use $ and quotation pound and test. Okay, and that will return any element, paragraph element whose ID is test. Okay, but if you do want to actually provide HTML fragment directly into this $ function, you could do that as well. Okay, so basically this could be used. I want to add, if there is no paragraph like this, basically what you want to do is this. I want to add this the HTML fragment to the body. So I want to so this is not present in the current DOM tree yet. Okay, so basically what you want to do is I want to add append to the body. Okay, so basically inside the body it will be appended. Okay, so now you can see jQuery is very powerful, right? I mean, none of these things you could actually do if you're trying to do these things using low-level DOM API. It's going to be very, very cumbersome. Okay, callback. So callback, you can actually provide a function object, and basically when the DOM is loaded, meaning when the page is loaded, and if you want to perform a function, you could do this. Okay, so $, and if you provide a function, that means when the DOM is ready, this function will be invoked. Okay, and this is the same thing as this. So you probably have seen document ready. Then this is in fact the same thing as this guy. Okay, and when you actually pass the jQuery object to the $sign, this is a case for cloning a jQuery object. Okay, so you're basically cloning this jQuery object that was passed. Okay, and both of those jQuery object references to the same DOM elements as initial one. Okay, you can pass a JavaScript object as well. So if you have a some vanilla JavaScript object, and if you pass as an argument to $sign, then you can actually call these methods. So, but in this case, the only operations supported in plain JavaScript objects are like a date, data, prop, bind, unbind, trigger, and trigger handler. Okay, so not all jQuery methods will be available in this case. Okay, so these are example of passing JavaScript objects. So here we define a plain JavaScript object. Okay, so it's a JavaScript object in literal form, key value pair, right? Okay, now I want to create a jQuery object from this JavaScript object. So I pass this JavaScript object of foo to the $sign method, and it returns jQuery object, and I want to reference it using $sign foo variable. Okay, so this $sign foo is a jQuery object, but because it is actually wrapping JavaScript object, the only method you can actually use are these methods. Okay, so some of the methods are prop. Basically, you can access property value of foo. So in this case, these property value of foo and hello, right? So the value of foo is bar. So test1 should have a bar. Okay, you can use the prop method. If you pass two arguments, then you are actually setting the first property with this value. So in this case, when you read the property of foo, it should now display foo bar. Okay, in this case, in this test using data for storing arbitrary data. So for the you can actually associate some data key value pairs to your jQuery object. So in this case, this key name and some value will be associated with this foo $sign foo jQuery object. Okay, and then I should be able to actually use data method to get, and then you provide a key name, and then it will return some value. Okay, so data is used to associate some key value pair into the jQuery object, and that is nothing different. That is different from the JavaScript object key value properties. Okay, all right. So far, yeah. So we are gonna do exercise 1. Okay, so let's take a look at exercise 1. I'll give you guys plenty of time to play around with this. In fact, we have almost 2 hours now to do this presentation in the lab, so I'm going to give you in fact plenty of time to play around, and I want you to do lots of experimentation on your own. Okay, so exercise 1 is we are going to first of all we are going to inspect jQuery, and first of all you have to actually include jQuery library. Okay, without this library, you are not going to be able to do anything with the jQuery. So you have to have the jQuery library. Okay, it could be URL to some kind of CDN out there on the net, or it could be actually inside in your local file system. So we are actually using it, the jQuery 1.7.2.js. That is provided as part of the hands-on lab. Okay. So what we want to do is we are going to take a look at the jQuery and the $sign object. Okay, so you can see these are in fact the function objects. So let's actually try that. Okay. So this one is jQuery 01. Yeah, here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to dissect jQuery and the $sign. Basically, we want to we want to see what they're actually pointing to, and those are actually basically function object. So those are two function objects here. So you can see if you know this is in fact both of them are function object. Okay, and so basically, yeah. So key point is the function object, so that you can call. Okay. And now we are going to call that jQuery, and the jQuery function returns a wrapped set of nodes. So as I said before, jQuery object wraps the DOM elements that it actually pointing to. So in this case, we have in this case we just call the $ method without providing any selector criteria. So in this case, this is gonna return jQuery object which contains none. So this one should be returning 0. There is 0 DOM elements. Okay, and if you actually search for, if you actually take a look at this Y, yeah, so you can see this is 0, and then this is the basically this init array is representing the number of elements it's actually wrapping around, because it doesn't have any that says a 0. Okay, now in this case we are searching for div element. Okay, so we have a 2 div element here, right? Okay, so when you do this, basically what you're saying is that search for all div element. Okay, and then create the jQuery object. Okay, so when you in fact the so when you actually see the length of it, it should actually return the 2. So the length in this case representing the the number of DOM elements is actually wrapping around. So it is in fact 2. So if you had another one, like if you say div, okay, like this, then it should return 3. Okay, so now it returns 3, right? 3. Okay, and you can see the array is also set to 3 as well. Okay, so in general, when you are the variable representing jQuery object, as I said before, it should be with a $ like this. Okay, that is the convention you want to follow. Okay, all right. that is 1.1. Okay, so we did that. Now if you take a look at the jQuery object, so if you see J, let's this is the jQuery object, right? So you can see internally it has actually maintaining those the elements. Okay, like the div, and in terms of methods, jQuery methods is actually coming from this. Okay, so it is actually from this prototype the field. Okay, so like let's say like a hide. So that was the one of the jQuery method that we saw in the example, right? So it does have a hide. Okay, and let's see what about the add class. Yeah, so add class is another jQuery method that we have seen in the slide, right? Add class. So these are the jQuery method that you can actually use. Okay, and you can see that a bunch of methods you can use on any jQuery object. Okay, okay, so 1.2 is selector, selector context. Yeah, so this is basically let me show you selector context, this guy, and when you run it, and we have 1, 2, 3. So when I click this guy, oh, so this is the when I click 1, it doesn't actually create this borderline. The same thing with the 3, but if I click 2, then it creates a borderline. Okay, so let me actually try again. No, nothing happens on 1 and 3, but if I click 2, it adds a border. Okay, basically, the reason is because we actually using this guy. So this is the code that I actually showed you. Okay, so we find all div element whose class is foo. So we have a div class. One div element has a class foo, and the second div element does not have a class foo. So when we do this, okay, it will select this guy, okay, and then we are going to call click method of that jQuery object, providing a function. So the function, basically what it does is that when it is clicked, we want to find all the p element inside this element. So when you say this, okay, it will search for only for this. Yes, in this case, this is basically this div element. Okay, so we want to search p element only within this div element, so it will find only this guy. All right, so that's the reason it's going to create a border. We are using CSS method, and then we are setting the border property with these values. So I want you to try without do this and see what happens, and see whether it is actually behaving as expected. Okay, so I'm gonna let you try that. Okay, and let's see. Yeah, so try that. Okay. Okay, so that is that exercise. And create jQuery object from a JavaScript object. Yeah, so basically, we this is the code that I showed you. Okay, I want you actually add another set of properties and read those properties and things like that. Okay, and this is the you can also use the bind method of a jQuery object, and you can specify the event name and function. Okay, and then you can call trigger. So this is a programmatically trigger an event. Okay, so this is something we can actually cover later on, but this example has this programming way of triggering event. Okay, so when you call trigger method of jQuery object, basically you are triggering event name, the event type, and then you can bind that event. So then this event handler will be invoked. And yeah, so we actually take a look at the jQuery object itself, and we see a bunch of jQuery methods that we can call, right? Okay, and you can see prop is one of those methods. Okay, wonderful. You can create a jQuery object from HTML fragment. So basically, yeah, so this is the jQuery for HTML04. What is the jQuery 04? Okay, here we go. This one. Okay, so yeah, so basically we want to append. So let's run this code. So this, basically yeah, this is in fact the appended to the body. Okay, and this is appended to the body. So if you just comment this guy out, and then then you're not gonna actually see that. Okay, so yeah, this is append to, and if you want to have append body, and or you could actually have like h2 and test, and you can have this one append to and try like h2, something like that. Okay, and see whether that works as expected. Okay, and then we append div element with attributes to the body element. So here we are going to select all div element, and then we set the my style, and then we are adding text, and then we are also adding the click function as well. Okay, and then we append the body. So in this case, we are constructing HTML the fragment in programming code. Okay, so you can actually set the styling, and you can set the text, you can provide the event handler and everything. Okay, so that's basically wonderful. Okay, all right, so I want you to do some experimentation of your own, change some code, and add some code and see whether they are behaving as expected. Okay, All right, so I'll give you about the 15 minutes to try this exercise. We are going to learn HTML element selectors in a bit more detail. So we have already seen some examples of how the selectors are used. Okay, so jQuery selectors. So jQuery selectors allows you to select and manipulate HTML elements as a group or as a single element. So jQuery supports what is called the CSS3 selectors, and as a primary means of selecting the HTML elements or DOM element, and it also has its own custom selectors as well. So the selector is actually provided as an argument to this $sign or jQuery the method. Okay, so let's see examples of this jQuery selector. So the first example, so when you say start, that means select all elements of that DOM tree. When you say P, that means select all P elements. When you say H2, then select all H2 elements. Okay. This one, p.intro, that means select all p elements whose class, CSS class, is set to, in this case, this value, intro. So if you say p.xyz, then you are searching for all p elements whose class attribute is set to xyz here. Okay. P pound intro. Pound is for ID. Okay. So in this case, I like to select all the p elements and then find the first element whose ID is intro. Okay. If you don't have p here and just use a pound intro, that means I like to find an element whose ID is intro. Okay. In this case, p pound intro, that means I like to find the first p element whose ID is intro. Okay. Colon animated. So this is in fact the custom select, I believe. Okay, so it select all elements that are currently animated. Okay, colon button selects all button elements and input elements of a type of button. So either button element or input element whose type is button. Okay, both of those will be selected. Colon even select even elements. Okay, so if you have, let's say, the table elements, multiple of those, and then you can have an even and odd element of those. And in this case, we are all, this is from the top level. So, for any element, any even element, starting from the top, will be selected. Okay. Typically, you want to use it, within the context of a table or the ordered items and things like that. Okay, so that is exercise 2. So let's take a look at the exercise 2. So here we are going to select a button. So if you click this guy and observe that the paragraph disappears. Okay, so if you take a look at the code, when the button is clicked, and then we are going to perform this function, and then inside we are going to search for the item that is test with the ID of test. Okay, and then this is gonna be hidden. Okay, so for your exercise, add another button with ID my button, and when the newly added button is clicked, hide all H2 elements. So this is for your exercise. Okay, so I'm going to actually ask you to do that. And this is the page with so select this is even and odd. Okay, so here you can see odd number items are backgrounded with yellow, while even numbered items are backgrounded with pink. Okay, so that's basically what happens. So here we have a table, and then we have 4 rows, right? And so here we are going to search for all even item from the table, the TL element. Okay, so table row element for even. So even is this and this. Okay, and we are going to set the background color to yellow, and for odd we are going to set the background color to pink. Okay. Alright, so for your own exercise, for all even numbered TL elements, change the color of the font to green. Okay. Okay, so the next one is the child. So we have the 3 items, and this item has nested items. So in this case, we have the UL element. Okay. And then it has the 3 LI items, and then LI item number 2, LI item 2 has another version of its own, the UL element. Okay, and UL is set to top navigation class. Okay, all right, and so here what we are going to do is for all UL element, and with the class top navigation, so if you change this guy to XYZ, then it will not find it. Okay, and so this notation is from CSS selector. So among the top so from this UL element, okay, so it will find it first, and I like to select all LI items, so this guy and this guy. Okay, and then you are going to set the border. Okay, so it is actually having a border of 3px double. Okay, so this one is the immediate child. Okay, so that's the reason it's not going to actually apply to this. Okay, because they are not immediate child of this UL element. Okay. Okay, let's see, and the next one is select box, checkbox. So we have 2 checkboxes. Okay, and then what we want to do is we are going to select form element first, right? So we have a form element, and then input, and for input is the checkbox type. So we are basically select these 2 input elements. Okay, and then we are going to wrap that element with a span. Okay, so these 2 elements will be wrapped with a span. Okay, and then we are going to go to the parent and then set the CSS. So the CSS, the background is yellow and border with red solid. So that's basically what you are going to actually see right here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so it's actually wrapped with the span. So that means parent representing the span element, and that the CSS styling is applied to this guy. Okay, and for div element, for div element we are going to set this text, and then color is red. So that's basically what you are going to see. Yeah, for this type jQuery found, and this is actually on this guy. Okay, and okay, so that is the end of exercise 2. Okay, so I think we have for you an exercise on 2.1 and 2.3, and for 2.3 let me see. So you can actually so try to set the 3, then try to set this guy with the 2px doubles green. Okay, so I want you to have the border on these guys as well. Okay, each of these guys should have the border. Okay, so I want you to add that. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so I think that probably is good enough. Okay, so I'll give you 15 minutes to do exercise 2. Continue. HTML element manipulation. So far we used the jQuery for selecting HTML elements. Now we want to actually do something with those selected elements. Okay. So jQuery contains pretty powerful set of methods for changing and manipulating HTML elements and their attributes. Okay. So here .html method, and you can set the content. So basically what it does is the changes the contents of matching HTML elements. So you searches for HTML element, then you change the contents of those. So it is actually the same effect, setting that in HTML of matching HTML element. Okay. So in this example, I like to find all paragraph, and then contents of that paragraph will be changed to new paragraph. Okay. Appends method appends contents to inside of the matching HTML element. Prepends content to the inside of matching HTML elements. Okay. And then we also have after and before. After insert HTML content after all matching element. So it will be after element, and this is before element. Okay, so you see the difference between the two. Append and prepend is inside the HTML tag, and this one is outside of HTML tag. So you're going to actually play around with this. Okay. All right, so that is exercise 3. So let's see exercise 3. The first one is append, and the second one is after, and third is setting the attribute. Okay. So in this case, append. So you can see append, in this case, hello is appended into I'd like to say. So let's see the code. So here we are going to find all paragraph element. Okay, so we have only one, and then we are going to append this strong hello. Okay, so that will be inserted right before the ending tag of of paragraph. So it will be inserted right here. Okay, all right. And for your exercise, add another H2 element. Add H2 element, and then append a strong word strong to the H2 element. Okay. And this is after. So in this case, I'd like to say yeah, so this is after. So basically, instead of the append, we're using after. Okay, so this will be added after this paragraph. So it will be added right after paragraph. So probably right here. Okay, between P element and script. Okay, so not inside of P element. Okay, so that's the difference. Right, and I want you to do the same thing. So basically, I want you to have this bold word into so this time you want to actually do after the same thing. Instead of actually append, I want you to do the after. This is adding attribute. Okay, so basically here we are going to search for EM element. So this is the EM element right here. And then we are setting the title, so we get the title first. So when you call the attribute and title, basically you are going to get the value of that attribute. Okay, so that will be set to this title, the variable, and on that the div element, we are actually just displaying that title. So it will actually set huge and gigantic to so it will display like that. Okay, so I want you to add change this title to something else, like something else, so your name or something like that, and then it will display different value. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so in this case, when you div text, it will actually display it right here. So the title of the emphasis is the huge and gigantic. Okay, All right, so in this case, for your own exercise, yeah, so basically just change some of these values and then display. Okay, so I'll give you just maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do this. In the meantime, let me just add this code. Yeah, so for 3.3, I added for your own exercise like this. So, basically I want, yeah, so yeah, just changing this value is just too simple. So add H2 element with a data message, JPassion.com attribute. And then I want you to display this message, like a data message of H2 element is JPassion, by reading the value of the data message attribute using this attribute method. And then you're going to use text method to display it somewhere. Okay, so this is the new exercise for your exercise for 3.3. CSS manipulation. So you can add CSS class by using add class method. Okay, and you can remove class by using remove class method, and you can toggle class by using toggle class. So basically it will add or remove. So if it is already there, it will remove it. If it is not there, it will add it. Okay. Or you can actually set or return one or more style properties for the selected element. Okay, so let's do exercise 4, CSS manipulation. So the first one is we are adding class and then get style and set style and toggle style. So the first one is in this case we are actually having styles inside HTML page. In general, this is not recommended. You want to have these things in a separate file. But for this exercise, we have selected we have the style for the paragraph, and then we have selected and highlight the styles. Okay, so for the last, so P last, that means I want to select the last paragraph. Okay, so we have 3 paragraph element, and I want to select the last paragraph, and then I want to add selected highlight, meaning I want to add these 2 the style. So it will add color will be set to red and background will be set to yellow. Okay, so for your own exercise, I want you to add 2 HT2 element and then add selected and highlight CSS styles to the first HT2 element. Okay, pretty straightforward. And this is the get style exercise. So we are basically getting the style information of this particular red colored square. So let's see the code. So here we have style for div. We are setting this style. So for all div element, this style will be applied. Okay. Let's see, and then for each div element we are using a different background color, so we are adding its own style for each of these div element in addition to this guy. Okay, and then when the div element is clicked, what we want to do is we want to get the CSS background color CSS style value. Okay, so in this case it should return the blue or this value and this value and things like that. And so we get the color of that particular background of the selected div element, and then we are going to set HTML, meaning the content of this result. The result we have what is a result element? Oh, here we go. Okay, so we have a result element, and we are going to we are going to include, instead of this guy, we are going to include the div is blah blah blah. Okay, so it will just have this guy. Yeah, so we are actually using span element, and then we also provide the color information. Okay. Okay, and that is for getting style, and this is for settings. So we are actually setting this guy probably to red. Okay, so here for paragraph mouse over. So yeah, so any mouse over paragraph, we are going to change the color to red. Okay, so let's actually try that. CSS2, CSS2. Yeah, so if I run it, and we have a 2 paragraph, and whenever we are moving our mouse, it's changed the color. Okay, for your own exercise, I want you to in fact toggle the style rather than setting it permanently. Okay, so that's something I'm gonna add as a for your own exercise. Oh, okay, so that is actually toggle is 4.4. Okay, so yeah, don't worry about it, so this is actually toggling. So when we do this toggle, toggle class and run this guy, and so if I click it, it will set the change background to yellow. If I click it, and it will remove the background. So that's basically toggle class. Okay, and yeah, so I want to actually add two HTML element. Yeah, so basically we're gonna do the same thing for your exercise. Add a two H2 element, and then I want to add this background highlight to those the paragraph, and then I want you to turn it off and turn it on. Okay, so this is simple. So I'm gonna just give you in a few minutes to try this exercise. Okay. Next is event functions. So we have seen some event functions such as a click function already. So document ready function, so binds the function to the ready event of the document. So in general, you want to make sure you are performing your JavaScript operations, especially when it's accessing some elements when the document is ready, meaning all the pages loaded and DOM structure is constructed. That's the time you want to perform some operation. Okay, so otherwise you might actually get your JavaScript code to be executed while DOM tree is not constructed. Then you might actually say, oh, I don't find this particular element and things like that. Okay, so that is document ready. Okay, meaning when document is ready, meaning when the DOM is constructed that I want to perform this function. This is a click when an item on this selected item is clicked. I want to perform some function. Double click, focus, mouse over. Okay, so that is the event. So again, it's pretty straightforward. So this is a bind an event handler. So this is basically you are programmatically bind an event handler to an element, and this is a click event, focus event, DOM ready event, and then this is the event object constructor and current target. So finding out the current target of the event. Okay, so let's try the event handler. When you double click and double click for hand click or double click a paragraph, and note that coordinates are window native, so that in case relative demo frame. So let's basically it will just give you that information. So let's actually try this. Is the event 01 bind. Okay, and when we do this, okay, so we can click or double click. Oops. This one doesn't work. So what is going on here? So we have a style. It's just the format. Let's beautify first. So we have style, and then we have jQuery latest.js. We have jQuery and click. Let's just make sure. Oh, yeah, it takes time. Looks like. Okay, click and double click. Yeah, why is it taking so long? Oh, maybe it's because it's actually downloading this guy. Wait a minute. Yeah, so let's actually try it. Yeah, taking still time. So let's see, click or double click, and so basically we are binding. So when the click event occurs, we want to perform this the event handler function to be invoked. Okay, so that is bind, and it's the same thing as like on click method. Okay, so here we created the string, and we actually receive event. So basically we get the string that shows the event coordinates, and then we actually just display the message in the span element. This is double click and this mouse over. So why is actually having some issues? Okay, let me actually see whether we can actually use local script. just copy this guy, and the one was event on bind, right? Yeah, so let's actually F12 and let's see what's going on. And the console. So where is the span? We should span. Oh, we don't have a span here. Maybe that's the reason. Span. Oh, okay. So yeah, the reason is we didn't have a span, so we have to actually add span here. Okay, and save it, and oh, now it works. Okay, so yeah, there's, I don't know why this span is actually removed. Okay, so we need to add a span, okay, in order to get this one work. Okay, so that is the single click, and this is double click, and then mouse over. Mouse over, we are basically toggle class, you know, so we are basically using this over, so background is being changed or not. Okay, so yeah, all right, yeah, so make sure you add this span element. Okay, so I'm gonna actually fix that, and yeah, so okay, so it's not even there. Okay, so for your exercise, add two H2 elements, and when first H2 element is clicked, display hello JPassion message into the span element. Okay, and I want you to use this bind method to create event handler. Okay, so 5.2 is event to trigger. So basically in this case, let's see, this is the event to trigger. Event to trigger. This one, let's run this guy. And we have two buttons here. So when I click the button 1, it just keep increasing the number of the click. But if I click button 2, okay, looks like the number is actually incorrectly changing. So you know, when the button 2 is clicked, we are, yeah, okay, this is correct. We also the invoking button 1 click as well. So if you see the code, okay, when the button 1 is clicked, we are just updating span first. Okay, and they just call the update method. And update method is basically getting the parse int j. So here you know, so if you take a look at the span first, so span first, we have two spans, okay, and we have these two spans, and basically we are just updating, so we get the text value, so 0, and then and then we so text value 0, and then that's actually the decimal system, and then we are actually incremented by 1. Okay, so that's the reason, you know, it's actually incrementing. When the second button is clicked, we are calling the first button as well. We are actually triggering the event, triggering the clicking of the first as well. So that's the reason whenever you are clicking this guy, not only this is incremented, this is also incremented. Okay, so this one is incrementing only itself, but this one, button 2, it will increment both. Okay, all right, so that is the logic. And so here for your own exercise, add the third button. When the third button is clicked, it should trigger both the first and second button and call update method as well. So in that case, all these three numbers should be incrementing by 1. Okay. This one is event focus or focus event. So here, when the input element, so input element is this guy. So we have a two input element, text and password. So either one is focus, and then we are going to you're actually getting the next element, and then we are setting the display in line with a fade out in 3 seconds. So let's actually try this one, and actually then we'll actually try to understand this guy, event 3 focus. So event 3 focus, and let's run this guy. Okay, so we are going to the focus. So focus here, and okay, so what happens is that when you focus it here, it displays the focus message, and then it gets display. It will be disappearing slowly. Okay, so that is, I think, 3 seconds. So when when this input element is focused, then we are going to call this function. So this function is, first of all, we are going to on the span, we are going to display, so this is a CSS, and then fade out 3000. So the message so basically when you get this next, so when you get the next, it will actually get the next item, so it will get this value. Okay, and then it will be so where is actually writing? So when it's focused, it gets the this element, on that element next. Okay, so okay, so it's not writing it, it's actually just displaying this guy. Basically what happens is that this span focus fire will be displayed, okay, in line, and then it will fade out in 3 seconds. Okay, so if you actually change, focus fire Sang Shin, and here you focus fire JPassion.com or something like that, that is actually something that will be displayed and then focused out. Okay, so here, focus fire Sang Shin, and this is focus fire of JPassion. Okay, so that is a focus. And then the last one is the DOM ready event. Okay, so in this case, we want to display only when the document is actually completely constructed, meaning DOM tree is constructed. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so instead of this message will be replaced with this guy when the DOM is completely ready. And then 5.5 is construct an event object programmatically. So here we are, so basically we create event object. So basically create event object on click, and then we pass event object with a trigger. Okay, so we are programmatically generating click event. So in this case, the event on event click. So let's see. Okay, so let's play around it. This is the object event constructor, this guy. So the first one is for paragraph. We when it is clicked, will display event has been clicked, and then create a new query event object with a new operator. So that is, and then we trigger event. So this is a click event. So if we remove this guy, so let's actually run this guy first. Yeah, so you can see it happens immediately, right? Okay, and when when I click the paragraph, and this is actually coming from this guy. So if I comment this guy, and then we are going to actually still have event because this is going to be executed right away. Okay, so let's actually refresh the page. Oh, did I save the change? Save the change and refresh. Oh, I expected. So we create an event and trigger an artificial PE event. Click event. Interesting. I expected actually, even without this, I create an event. Then when I call trigger, I thought this is supposed to automatically trigger an event, but that is not the case. Okay, so I have to take a look at why that is the case. Okay, so I'm gonna actually play around it. And 5.6 is the object current. Yeah, it actually finds out the current target. So here, when you click the P, and you can actually get the event object as an argument, and for current target is this object. Okay, or you can just actually see display current targets. The Yeah. So I'm kind of yeah, I wonder whether there is a way that we can actually find out some, I have some attribute like a data message on this guy and, uh, some kind of display. So that's an exercise I'm going to actually add. Okay. So you want to actually, add some attribute here, and then you're going to actually get the value of that P attribute of that P element and see whether that actually matches or not. Okay, but this one is actually okay. So basically checking whether this element is in fact the same target of this one, and it should return true. Okay. Okay, so I am gonna give you guys about the 5 minutes for this exercise. We have the exercise 7 and 8 and 6. Okay, so we have only 20 minutes for those three exercises. So well, actually, yeah, we don't want to actually rush. I'll give you 10 minutes, and then we'll actually continue tomorrow. Okay. All right, so let's actually see. JavaScript. Okay, so this is a question from Shasha Tap. Okay, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name okay. I'm gonna call you Roy. So I just responded by writing. So good observation. So in this particular example, I have actually script after this guy, and the question was, is there any reason for that? Okay, and in fact, that is a good question. There is a reason for that. So if you have this guy, let's say up here, okay, this code will be executed before. It's possible that this code will be executed before this DOM tree will be in fact loaded, meaning completely constructed. Okay, and then you might in fact experience a problem of that element does not exist and things like that. Okay, so there are two options you have. One option is to have your JavaScript code to be loaded at the end so that all the DOM elements are loaded first. Okay, but this is not really foolproof, right? Sometimes you might in fact actually move this guy up here by mistake, right? That's the reason. Typically what you want to do is you want to actually make sure all your operations that references those DOM elements should be inside this document ready function. Okay, so what it does is that when you say document.ready, that means this code will not be executed until DOM tree is completely constructed. Okay, so basically if you want to actually add that code on the up here, then you want to have that code inside this function. Okay, all right, so that hopefully answers your question. Okay, let me just make sure I'm actually opening the left folder. So what we want to do is here, and we are going to have a document ready. Okay, so that worked. Oh, so you want to actually move it in the header? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we could do that. So move this guy and into the header like this. Save the change, and it worked. So JavaScript code could be either in the header or body, so it doesn't really matter. But in general, you want to have it in the header. This is the typically good practice.